See how brave this crowd is. How many of you stay up too late last night? Kind of regretted this morning. Not too many brave souls. One here. All right. My name is Adriano Santos. I'm the U.S. Country Manager for FBN Direct. I'll be talking to you today about our crop protection portfolio. Marc-Andre Fortin is here with us, and he will help get the job done. Mark leads our category management group for North America, so he's in charge of the portfolio decisions we made. We also have Neil McCormick with us. Neil is our specialist on the adjuvant biostimulant portfolio for our global business. The way this conversation should go for the next 30 minutes or so, we are hoping to leave some time at the end for questions, is we'll start at high level, talking a little bit about a strategy as it relates to the crop protection business, what we're trying to do. We'll go a little deeper into the proprietary brands we created, the portfolio and the pipeline. We'll touch a bit more into the acre pack. I think you heard from Luis this morning. We'll go a little deeper into that. And then we'll finish with the Farmer2Farmer special offers for you today, okay? As we look into our portfolio, what we're trying to do with crop protection, which today is by far the largest part of our business from a revenue standpoint, we're trying to really focus on three key things. First one is to provide you with choice, right? Have a portfolio that's robust enough to serve your needs in your farm. We are trying to make sure that the product that we are shipping to you, we're shipping reliably, so the shipping experience is a good one. We also have supply reliability and high quality. Many times the generic market is perceived as something that is not as high quality as the branded market. And what we have done over the last few years and will continue to do is to establish processes to make sure that's not the case, right? The quality is exactly where it needs to be to service your needs. Last part of this pillar is being competitive priced. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how we can get it done without compromising on the other one. So quick story here is that when we started this business from a grower choice standpoint, we decided to go and try to access products from others in the industry, and we were not very successful doing this. Right? Not too many companies wanted to partner with us because we're perceived as the disruptor. So today we have created a very robust proprietary lineup. The vast majority of what we sell is actually ours, our registrations. We invested heavily on a network of suppliers throughout the world to really have reliability on supply. Last year was a great example of that, where the industry really struggled to provide certain products to the marketplace, and we were in a really good spot due to our efforts from a data standpoint to try and predict the demand, and also due to the network that we created with those suppliers that are also now going through a very rigorous process to qualify them. Right? There is a number of individuals within FBN whose job is primarily just to qualify suppliers and make sure that they are providing quality products. And then lastly is the competitive pricing. And if we do those three things right, we get to happy customers. And over the last few years, last 3 years in particular, the evolution of the customer satisfaction has been great. Just October as an example here, we achieved over 91% positive customer satisfaction on our crop protection business. I'll touch on competitive pricing a bit more. And this is the key, the secret sauce per se, which is not too secret. But the reason why we can be competitive pricing-wise has to do a lot less with quality of products or how cheap we buy. It has to do more with the fact that we are optimizing the value chain within agriculture. The traditional supply chain includes several players here. You can see tech suppliers, tollers, registrants, wholesalers, brokers, retailers. Many times those different players are actually different entities. They all have brick and mortar infrastructure, they have overhead, and that cost is passed on to the farmer. The FBN model in CP in particular is that we play the role, we streamline this process significantly. We still work with a few tech suppliers and we still have to find ways to manufacture products. But then we have our own warehouses, which just as an example, a state like Illinois, retail has probably about 800 locations in the state of Illinois. We have one warehouse that services really 2 states. So when you think about the size and scope of what we're trying to do in the investment, or actually lack of overhead spending that we have, we can absolutely streamline this value chain and pass on some of those savings back to you with high quality products, but at a much very competitive pricing. So that's kind of the reason that we can do what we do. It's a lot to do with the way we're set up and the investments we've made. I will ask Mark now to come and talk a little bit about how we got here.
So I think it's important to talk about the story of how we ended up in that position, right? That last slide shows the different margin towers that occur in the industry and how FBN has ended up in a completely different position. And it's easy to say, well, that's great, happy for FBN, why do I care? And I think that's fair, but I think the reason why it matters to the farmers is that it offers you the more competitive prices. It means that the retailer you're partnering with has more options on its label. It means we have more options on our suppliers, and it means that we're more resilient as an organization, and for our community builders in the room, that your businesses are more stable. Now, the story of how we got there is really interesting because it wasn't actually our first idea. Our first idea was, well, we'll just compete with traditional retails with an asset-light model, and we will just fight the fair fight. And that's just not what happened. So when we moved into Canada for the first time, we decided to purchase a company by the name of Yorkton Distributors, bought that company, and lost all our access to branded suppliers. So what that means is that FBN had invested a bunch of money and time into moving into Canada and effectively had nothing to sell. So it was pretty catastrophic, a little bit existential of a moment for the Canadian business. And the reason that ties back to the US business is that it forced us to go and acquire a company called Great Northern Growers. The reason we bought that company was essentially for their labels. We wanted to buy their assets so that we could produce the products, import them into Canada and sell them because we had literally no other options left on the table. And what we saw when we did that was that the same animosity that was in the industry towards FBN on not wanting to sell to us, not wanting to support our growth, didn't actually exist with the people manufacturing the tech. Oftentimes the same manufacturers of tech that supplied those other companies. So that's one of the things that really kind of was an aha moment for us. It kind of triggered the next piece of it, which was for us to acquire Willowwood USA. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We then acquired FarmSave in Australia, and all three of those companies were basically the same play. Buy, acquire the label, optimize the portfolio, and sell direct to farm. That's how you get into that last slide. When you look at that last slide, the last two dots on the traditional supply chain were really what we could have done had we not followed this strategy. Being able to go into that fully vertically integrated supply chain really allows us to do more. It allows us to be more resilient, and it just gives us a lot more optionality. So now, how did we get to the Farmers First brand, right? We talked about all of the things we bought. Farmers First is something we built, and Neil is going to talk about that quite a bit after here. But what's really interesting there is that we kind of just amalgamated a bunch of great technologies and rolled it into an FBN brand, and it's really an exciting story. When we talk about the path and the what's next, the Farmers First brand is basically how we took all of the things we owned, acquired, and grouped together and optimized, and then refined them into that Farmers First brand. That means that we invested not just in acquiring the labels and getting the cheaper prices and building the relationships, but it means that we also went and got different suppliers and different products to build those products so that the supply chain was more resilient, that it was a more modern adjuvant component, that it had redundancies if one of the supply chain pieces failed. And as we started doing all of those things and changing those labels, improving that product line, we were able to then say, okay, well now we've made this our own, let's turn it into our own brand, and that's where that Farmers First brand comes in. Today, it's mostly on the adjuvants and bios, which you'll hear about shortly, but we're going to be rolling in a good portion of our brand in the US into this Farmers First brand, and eventually Canada as well. Now, what do we offer, right? When you think about the offerings, we think about our herbicides, insecticides, fungicides on the crop protection side. We have a lot of the largest actives, Roundup, Liberty, Gramoxone, Select, and A-Frame, right? Those are some of the things that we competed in the generic space with our own branding or our own tolling. And it's basically organized by crop. The way that we organize what we need, what we're going to invest in, is what is our agronomic coverage on each of the crops. So for soybeans, we have a pretty robust portfolio, a good selection of pre-emergent, a good selection of residuals, a good selection of contacts. Once you get later in the season and you want to protect the crop that's looking great, you want to put a fungicide or an insecticide because you're seeing some disease or pest pressure, we have a full suite of options for the soybean crop. Corn is one where we're rapidly trying to develop especially our pre-emergent line. We have a lot of individual actives on corn, but what we're really working towards is building those co-formulated products that farmers love to use. They're a lot more simple when you have one tote versus trying to mix a couple rates, so that's really our path on corn, but we do have the protection on the pest and the disease as well. The cotton and rice portfolios are some of our more complete agronomic coverage products cotton not so much on the defoliants, but on the herbicide piece, definitely. And that's traditionally because it came from Willowwood. The Willowwood brand was a little bit more of a wholesale focused brand, and now we're trying to move all of those pieces back into the direct-to-farm consumer base. So there's definitely some changes that we're making there, but a really good agronomic coverage on both of these crop, and definitely something that we're trying to build over time. For people in Kansas or Montana or any kind of the Midwest, or sorry, the West, we do have a pretty good cereal portfolio on wheat and sorghum. Notable miss is probably a grass herbicide. We don't have necessarily a great grass control product under our own brand, and that's something we're working on developing with pinoxidin coming in 2024. So excited to make some improvements there as well. Now, we talked about the acquiring of the companies, the changing of the labels, the kind of optimizing the portfolio. The way we've kind of been doing that is by doing trials, right? We've done 250 IRL trials in real farmers field. By 2025, we're going to have 18 of the top 25 products that are important to North America or US farmers. We've invested $50 million just in the CP R&D, just to make those labels more robust, to change our state registration requirements, to make sure that we have everything tied up so that there's no hang-ups to sell these products in the US. And we're trying also to bring in those novel technologies. So that's where Neil comes in, and he's basically taken an index of all of the things that are available to the market and kind of put them against each other, competed, and then came out with a great portfolio.
So I'm going to go into the Farmers First products, both our biological and adjuvant lines. But first wanted to give you just a sense of how we landed on the technologies and the partners that we worked with to bring you the line of products we have. So three things we focused on. One was the science, so well-vetted products where we know what they're doing, why they're doing it, so strong agronomy background. It's not a trust me it works type of situation. We want to understand mode of action and why we're using these products. Two is convenience, so easy to use, high quality products. Don't want to have any mixing issues in the tank, convenient rates, make sure that you're not having to add an operation. And then the data to understand and optimize the product use, both short and long term, so using our IRL program to vet, find good products, and then also bring you guys tools to measure performance and new technologies on the farm over time and figure out how to use them specific to your operation. So those are the big three things we focused on when we were looking at this. So we're going to start with the biology. If we look at our two main inputs that we're using on the farm today, chemical fertilizer, it's our nutrient supply. We got to supply the nutrients we have, and then we want to control the biotic stress, disease, insects, weeds, so everybody knows that. So there's a lot of confusion about what you add. There's 5,000 biologicals. They all gain you 10 bushels. If you add them all, you're going to have a 10,000 bushel corn crop and life is good. But it's not really the situation. So there's two main things that biology can accomplish and function as agronomically. One is abiotic stress. So complementing the biotic stress control would be the weather stress, soil stress, so compaction, pH issues, all those types of things, and then your weather stress, as well as we put harsh chemicals on. So how do we make the effects less harsh when we're putting those chemicals on that we know are taking the crop back? Then the second one is the nutrient availability. So how do I get the most out of my expensive fertilizer investment? And then also for the short term and then long term, how do I create a more resilient soil that's able to transport, store nutrients, make sure I'm not losing them? So those are the two things, just to cut through the confusion of what biology can do. So I'm going to try to simplify the agronomy and the framing that we used when we built the portfolio, just to give you a sense of how this all functions and how we structured the portfolio to really build a long-term nutrient efficiency approach for the farm. So we start, and if you can't read, we'll see how good the signs are, but I'm going to talk you through it. So we have ammonium. We start with ammonium either with our fertilizer, or there's products that can convert nitrogen gas to ammonia. So we were trying to figure out, well, how do we capture that 70 million pounds above the air and be able to get some of that down into the ground and available to the plant? We can use biology to do that. Then as we go to nitrite to nitrate, we're going to get some loss once we get to the nitrate. We're going to volatilize, we're going to leach out. So how do we prevent that? Typically we add nitrogen stabilizers, nitrogen inhibitors to be able to stop the conversion. But what we want to do is like how do we do that for the long term? How do we build a soil that just builds up the capacity to store and not lose our expensive investment there? So we actually start above ground. We're going to go through our photosynthetic process. The more photosynthesis that we generate, the more sugar production we're going to have within the plant. That's going to transfer through the exudates, feed the microbes. Then that's going to convert to amino acids. So what we're trying to do there is make sure that we have a stable nutrient in the ground that's not leached, that's available to the plant. There's a lot of nutrients in the ground. There's a ton of supply, but this is the process that's going to free them and make them available. And then once we have them available, how do we hold them and make sure we don't lose them? And our humates are what makes the soil black. That's what holds and stores nutrients in the soil. So we want to have that material to be able to keep them there and prevent them from going up or down as well. So the products that we have, that's going to apply to our other phos, potassium, sulfur, and all of our other micros too. So, okay, well, that's a lot of good agronomy. So how do we actually take this and then use products to be able to influence this process and maximize the efficiency? So above ground, we have Nourish Vitals and Ataris. To influence the microbes, we have a catalyst, which is a complex energy source that's going to stimulate the native microbes. So all the native end fixers, phos solubilizers, we want to feed those and make them work better. Mycorrhizal is going to uptake water and phosphorus, all the minerals. So we want to get a bigger root mass, bigger root system. And in doing so, we're actually getting some of the benefit we want to get with like a cover crop system where we're trying to get roots below the ground to build that soil structure. So the bigger root mass we're actually getting some of the benefit we're trying to gain when you do a cover crop type system. Then the Inject N would be a nitrogen fixer, and then our Inhabit Boost and Habit P would be our humate-based products. So kind of a complex explanation, but that should just want to give you guys the context of the agronomic framing and thought behind the portfolio. From a convenience point of view, with your pre-emerge herbicide, Catalyst would be the product. You'd position there, mixes right in. You can either replace your starter with Inhabit P or add Inhabit Boost to your starter to make it perform better or to prevent loss. Then Inject in the Myco and the Catalyst is something you can add to your starter just to enhance the performance, build soil quality, really geared towards a long-term soil quality and soil building approach. And then our boosted side dress to help prevent the loss of nitrogen at that timing. And our post-emerge, the Taurus and Vitals would tank mix right in with our herbicide fungicide timing. So we're not adding operations. We're between 16 ounces to a gallon, or actually 2 ounces up to a gallon is the rough use rate for all the products. So very low, convenient. So it took a lot of time there, and we're going to focus on a product called Inhabit P. So what that product is, we're actually taking a humate source, we're binding the phosphorus to a carbon molecule. And what that does is it's going to increase the availability and then prevent the loss, tie up with calcium, aluminum, iron, clays. So what that does is that enables a lower rate. So phosphorus is notoriously inefficient, up to 80%. So we're able to keep the majority of that available to the plant, so we can use a lot less product. Phos is going to tie up other minerals. It's high salt with a lot of the high starters. So we're going to 2 quarts at a 10-to-1 dilution. So it's a 5-gallon applied rate. So it flows like water once you have it. It's friendly to other biology, and it's a starter program that'll actually build soil quality instead of adding salt back. So the data, we had 95% success this year on around 40 to 80 acre farms or fields doing testing. So it ranged between plus or minus 4 is the range. So it was not a statistically significant loss. You're thinking, well, I'm putting that much less phos down, there's going to be an issue. Didn't have a big issue. So looking back to last night, there's a lot of potential phos shortages. There's a lot of issues coming down the pipe. So this is really a way to get do more with less phos and be able to build soil quality and performance of the soil over time. So real excited about this product here. And then, so that's the bio portfolio. We'll be over there if you want to chat on that later. And then I'll transition over to adjuvants. So what do we need an adjuvant for? Just got a quick video here to, all right, glitch. I might have to skip over the video. That's all right, though. There we go. All right. So on the left, you'd have your no adjuvant, and on the right, we're just getting better coverage. We're maximizing our investment in our crop protection products. So on the left, you can see if I have a contact pesticide, obviously I'm not getting as good of activity. So if I'm spending, $50 to $70 an acre on CP products, I want to spend that extra $1 to $3 to be able to make sure that I'm getting good activity on my pesticide and not losing any of that on the way. So the things that can go wrong, environmental, so wind, temperature, humidity, equipment issues, water quality, formulation, the plant itself is going to roll water off the leaves, so we just want to use adjuvants to be able to mitigate those issues. So the portfolio we have is our water conditioners, so it's our mixed category. So just water conditioners, utility modifiers, we have a line of those. Applied B are VRA, DRA products, so the field grip line. And then in the perform category, that's once it gets onto the leaf and we need to get the AI into the leaf. It's going to be you have a fighting brand NIS and then a higher quality NIS that's going to be better for foliar, especially fungicide, insecticide use. Then in-plant and in-plant ADVs, the crop oil products. So that's a standard crop oil. Then we have an advanced crop oil that's going to be more plant safe, lower rate, different mode of action actually. And then the MSO line, so a high surf and Organicell MSO for hot, dry conditions, and then our standard MSO product. Then our multifunction, so if I want to do everything in one, we have the EvenL Pro, which is an AMS, non-ionic, and then a drift control package. And then our Tether DC and 2.4, same thing, but going to be AMS free, the DCs for our dicamba, so Ingenia, Extendamax, Tavium. Then the 2.4 is going to be for Enlist products, so the 2.4D. Formulation, so those are the differences between the two products, and really it's the drift package that's the only difference. So you have to have a different drift package for each one in order to pass the wind tunnel test to get them on the website. So if you're wondering, well, what's the difference between the two, that's what it is. So with that, I'll pass it over, just a good overview on the products. I'll give it back to Mark here on the acre packs.
Thanks, Neil.
Yep.
So I think from this past, 10 minutes, 15 minutes that we've been talking to you, it's probably clear that there's a lot going on. We're investing in a lot. There's complexity in the portfolio. And unfortunately, there's complexity in the day-to-day lives of your operations and the spray and understanding your water, your spray, your weeds, your soil types. Everything that you do is complex. So as much as we're trying to build a distilled portfolio, it's tough to truly get all the things that are going on. So one of the ways that we've been trying to move away from at FBN is that we started by giving you a product page that said, buy the exact same product as somebody else for less. That assumes two things. You know exactly what you need on your farm. You only want one product, and you only care about that one single product price. What we're trying to really pivot towards is helping with a little bit more of that agronomy, digital agronomy, talking about that farm planning, and really just providing value other than just the price. We always want to be price competitive, but we also just want to give you guys other intrinsic value from going onto the website, building a crop plan. So that is where the FBN Acre Pack. You guys, if you were here in the last presentation, saw a short video on it. This is really the package where we try and take our digital agronomy package and we combine agronomics, economics, and then input planning. So we are trying to make it a little bit easier to transact digitally with FBN and have you guys make crop plans and work with your accountants and just have visibility into all the things that are going on, because across the whole portfolio there's a lot of complexity and we're just trying to distill it a little bit. Now, I think you're going to see a video here. All right, so what we really wanted to just highlight there is that we're trying to make it easier to order, easier to understand the portfolio, and all the work that Neil's been doing on building a robust adjuvant and bios portfolio is a little bit easier to digest in one page in one spot as you're checking out than it is to try and find exactly what product and what things you're looking at. So with that, this is the part of the presentation where I turn into Billy Mays. We talk about all the cool stuff we've got going on. So we're going to talk about the FBN bucks. Anytime you transact at the show, the minimums are here. Basically, spend equals FBN bucks. You can use them to buy Yeti coolers or whatever floats your boat for under the Christmas tree. On the AgSaver glyphosate, I mean, we talked a lot about the reliance on China yesterday and maybe how that is a short-sighted plan. But unfortunately for crop chem, that is the reality for not just FBN, but for basically the entire industry is pretty reliant on Chinese manufacturing. We feel like right now there's stability, right? We don't necessarily share all the same views as Peter, but there is definitely geopolitical risk, and we feel like we're offering good prices based on where everything's transacting today. And so those on glyphosate is buying as low as $28.20. That's including a cash discount and going through the acre pack that we just watched a video on. You've got Glypho 6, which is a new product for FBN, and you might not have ever heard of this, but this is our higher load 6-pound K-salt. So this is going to be one of the really nice products. So when we launched this in Canada, we essentially sold an IPA salt in Canada for a couple of years. We swapped to entirely the K-salt within 2 years. We went from 100% one product to 100% the other. Just the density alone, right? Having less product on your sprayer is really nice. You get, just the added load is great, and a good surfactant package as well. Glufosinate as low as 57, really competitive price. Clomazone for those of you in rice growing regions at 53.69. Atrazine, below 20. And the one that we talked about earlier was Inhabit P. So Neil talked about win rate meaning zero yield. And that might seem like a weird sales pitch. But what I think is really important to talk about here is that we're trying to sell on zero yield because we're talking about massive reductions on your 1034. So on a price per applied acre at your corn pop-up, let's just say your corn 1034 application or 624.6 is somewhere in the realm of 25 to 35, depending on where you are. You're talking about having a replacement here for 17 an acre. So that is some very material savings, and we're really excited to have this show special on 10% if you buy today. So, all right, I'm going to pass it over to Adriano here.
All right, this is the last slide we have. We're going to close this quick here and open up for a Q&A. Just want to kind of highlight a little bit of our journey up to where we are and then talk a little bit about things for the future. So when we started into this crop protection business a few years back, we were the industry disruptor. We tried to get access to products, but we didn't get it. Had very limited access to infrastructure, right? We were not big enough to where we haven't really built at that time our infrastructure to deliver products to the customers. And at that time, reality is the customer service was somewhat spotty. We had challenges. In some situations we could fix them, and in some situations we couldn't. The online store had just been recently built for the experience that the customer would have, and it wasn't necessarily where it had to be. From that point to where we are now, evidently had a much broader proprietary portfolio, lots of choice, not quite where we want to be, but we have a very complete portfolio for several crops. Still a few gaps, as Mark mentioned, on the corn residual side that we're working through. Quality of products and reliability of supply has been very, very, very different. We have spent millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars on our crop protection business, and we got to a place where we have now logistical infrastructure, access to supply, unlike we had before. And that translates into very strong customer experience. We have seen numbers that are actually not common in this industry, from an NPS score, as Luis mentioned this morning, to a customer satisfaction score as well. The online store also evolved to where hopefully you see it's somewhat easy to use, very intuitive, and that also leads to good experience. As we look into the future, what are some of the things that we're going to be doing? Well, the theme here is really more of the same, right? A lot of the success that we have had on the crop protection business has to do with choosing to do the right things. In particular, expanding our portfolio is where most of our effort is at. Over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to bring a whole lot of new AIs to the marketplace. Definitely a lot about biostimulant solutions and adjuvants as we work with partners. We will, though, continue to evolve into this offering piece. And the one point I want to make here is that when we talk about evolution of unique offerings, those are about choice. We are not in a path here, or we have no intentions of having For example, acre packs being the only way a grower can transact with us, because it doesn't work for everybody. A lot of this group here, a lot of you farmers have told us that you love the simplicity, the ability to go online, check prices, and transact that way. That will remain, and that will be one of the ways to transact with FBN, as you guys always had. However, there is a segment of the marketplace. There are some farmers that really appreciate the ability to do crop planning online and have a digital tool to help them decide which products to buy, which rates, which volumes, and that's what a tool like AcrePack can do for that subset of the marketplace. We will continue to incorporate other offerings within the crop protection business, right? Financial offerings like we have today with input loans, operating loans as a way to check out your products. We are looking into potentially risk management tools within crop protection. We already do a few, like price protection. Price protection is a great risk management tools that we use today, and we'll continue to find other offerings that can make sense for you, for the farmers and producers when it comes to your crop protection purchase. With that said, I would like to open up for any questions you have as it relates to our crop protection business in the U.S., portfolio and otherwise. And I'll invite Mark and Neil to join me here to answer those questions. If you can have the lights down here, and there's mics, I think 4 mics in the room. Anyone that has a question, just walk up to the mic and ask us. I'll go to this slide. Anybody, any questions? Trends, any specific questions on the portfolio, anything you guys curious about?
Man, crickets.
All right, if not, we appreciate your time. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and appreciate the business, and appreciate taking the time to be here with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can hear